Did you drop it in the reaction meme section? Hey, Vitosh, how you doing? Hey, I'm glad you guys are here. We'll be doing some of the reaction memes, the Q&As, and then we'll be talking about, and I guess this is a big part that I'll open up to YouTube as well, like probably the first video that goes out. What do you guys want me to see next? I know that I'm doing Vivi, and I'm probably going to do Attack on Titan like by myself off stream, but then I'll open it up to you guys once we get to that. Actually, I gotta say though, have you guys been liking like the daily uploads for ReZero just to get it all done and over with? Like, the interactions that you guys have been having with it has been so far pretty amazing. So I personally enjoy it. So thank you a lot for everyone that's been commenting and stuff. It helps a ton. Though I gotta say, I don't know how you guys like watch it all, if that makes sense. Like, I go through it, I'm like, all right, cool, I recorded it, and then like next thing I know, it's like, oh, you know, people have watched it like from top to bottom. I'm like, what? That's quick. Like, damn. Let me see. All right, it might just be us for a bit because I know that the mods are taking a little while. Oh, thank you. Well, still, hey, you know what? If you got to see them while we were doing them live, that's even better. That helps out a ton. But if you just run them on mute in the background, it helps a ton. It helps, like, all the likes, all the comments helps reach more people. An unhealthy sleep schedule. And especially since they've been going out like 2, 3, 4 in the morning, like, at least on my side, like, I don't know what time you guys usually get them when I upload. So that's rough. Well, I hope that you're doing okay. I hope that you're holding on okay, relative. I will be doing that, but that's like on a separate video altogether. I know I have to find the notebook again. It's been months since I've touched the thing, but it was pretty hefty, essentially. And if not, I'll just create like brand new notes, brand new everything. Like, not so much the notes, but like the thinking pattern that goes behind each like character and action and scene stuff, you know? But Grace? Oh, relative. Oh, I'm so sorry. I had COVID kicked my butt, and I'm pretty sure Kraith can attest to this, where I was like, guys, I feel absolutely horrible, you know, so on and so forth. But yeah, no, it was rough. I hope you're feeling better, though, and I hope that, like, it's a speedy recovery, man, because it can be scary. Kraith, how are you? I love you, man. Like, it's been a while. See, even Kraith agrees. It was pretty rough. I have to say, now that I've taken some time, and I guess I'll talk about this now that, like, it's been some time away from ReZero in terms of, like, actually watching it. Looking back at some of the scenarios and some of the stuff like that, like, I would be down, and this is for me personally, like, to doing a second viewing of it by myself and then, like, just focusing in on more key moments, because that was only my first watch through, and all of you guys that were here on Twitch, like, you guys got to see literally like everything that I'm paying attention to on a first watch through. So if I ever did a second watch through or whatever, I might just compile all the new moments together and then just put it together and throw it out there if you guys would be interested in that. But that would be like an aside, you know? I do want to react to Mushko, or I can't even pronounce it, Tensei. I've heard that it's a pretty good anime. I've heard that it's very... The one that I'm talking about is ReZero, right, Kraith? Because you have to remember, that was my first watch through from, like, top all the way down, and I never really, like, went back and watched an episode again. It was quite literally, like, from point A to point B. And it's, like, everything that I could capture, I, like, said it out loud. You know, I paused it, and I talked about it, and then I continued. So... Thanks for joining the family, USB, but that would be something definitely to try and do. Well, yeah, thanks for subbing. But with Moshka Tensei, I do know that it is very, I don't know how to put it. You have two big camps, right? One of them that completely, like, it's inappropriate, it has all of these things, and the other one being like, oh, you know. Thanks for, like, chatting, USB. How are you doing today, by the way? Just how are you as well? I haven't talked to you guys in a good bit, like ever since I like recovered from COVID. Attack on Titan, yeah, Attack on Titan is coming. As I said, I'm doing that by myself before, sort of like I did the first couple of ReZeros, and then I'm throwing them up there. And it'll come as a surprise. Like, it'll happen randomly the way that, like, the ReZero uploads just happen randomly as well. It's great character drama. Yeah, definitely. So I'll mark that down. And then, like, later on, as we get towards, like, the end of the stream, I'll actually, like, let you guys spam the chat with as many animes or video games that you guys want me to go ahead and, like, play, watch, whatever it may be. So that way the YouTubers, the YouTube only people, can comment as well, and that way I get a good idea as to what people want to watch, not watch, so on and so forth, you know? Anything, Professor Sawyer. It can be anything, as long as I'm able to, like, as long as it's not like Boku no Pico 100% of the time, you know, or like any like hentai or anything like that. No, it has to be specific, like, you know, like stuff that we can like dissect and analyze together. It can be funny, it can be serious, you know, it can be anything, psychological, what is it, like slice of life, whatever. Do you think, like, I think this is something that I'll bring up in general, you know, because a manga or an anime can never truly like 100% capture like a novel or anything like that. My roommate claims it to be horrible. Oh no! But do you guys think that, like, because of that inability to capture pretty much every single detail that a book can capture, sometimes you have to make sacrifices in order to fit? So, like, if I'm giving you a 30 chapter run, right, to finish like a 300 chapter book, like, you're gonna have to cut out some details and make it rushed, right? You know, I've heard a lot about Made in the Abyss. I think Kratos was one of the like individuals that brought it up as well before in Eldris, if I remember correctly. Oh, AOT wasn't a so okay, that. But just in general, you know, like, for example, with ReZero Season 2, I've heard a lot of people complain about things being missed out, you know? And that's why I'm like, sure, I guess, right? ALT source material is the manga. Ooh. 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 I'll put that in there. I thought ReZero Season 2 was pretty good, but that's just because I haven't touched the novels at all. So I'm not sure if, like, reading the novels is going to ruin the anime experience, you know? Yeah, but, and, you know, yesterday we were talking about gatekeeping, and I guess I'll bring this up to you guys. Have you guys experienced gatekeeping or lore keeping, like, people being, like, I don't know how to put it, completely, like, throwing, like, specific book knowledge at you because, like, you've only watched the anime and trying to shut you down because of the anime, like, or from watching the anime because of it? I've experienced it even as a YouTuber. I know some comments have gotten deleted on YouTube because some people really feel the need to try and spoil stuff, and I know the mods have encountered it where people go above and beyond because people try and, like, gatekeep an anime just because you're not reading it. Yeah, it's weird. It's like, no offense, reading a novel is awesome. Getting all the info and the extra details is cool because you can speculate your own theories. But then, like, writing a book to other people because of how they feel about a moment, that's a bit rough. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's okay to enjoy the novel, but, like, you know, it's rough when other people are trying to express an opinion about how they felt about a specific scene, and then coming in and being like, oh, you're completely wrong, let me tell you why, like, every single chapter. Like, that's the rough part, you know? I guess going back, like, touching a bit back on ReZero, what has been your guys' favorite ReZero episode? Not some, or, like, moment that you guys, like, your first watch through. What is something that, like, stuck through with you that made you go, okay, this is a good series, or, you know what, I really prefer this? Excuse me. That was a good scene. Episode 4, Season 2. Which one is that, Eldris? You gotta name out a moment in it. Particular moment. Oh, Subaru's trial. I'm over here making orange juice for myself. Damn. Nice. Episode 1 really hooked me, I'll be honest with you. Especially because the ending really fucked with me for a while. Like, I'm pretty sure you guys will see if you guys are in the stream, you guys already know that like the first episode was like 3, 4, 5 hours long. It was a long episode originally. And then I had to keep editing because it was on a shitty laptop. And so I got it to like the length that it is now. But it fucked with me hard, really hard. Like I remember going to sleep and still thinking about it, you know? But I will say episode 18 was like one of the few moments where I like solidified it for me, especially like the whole, just a relationship, dynamic between Rem and Subaru, and the way that like there was nothing else happening other than a conversation, and it carried through a whole show. Like that was beautiful. Parent and child, oh, that was a good one. All right, let's go ahead and get to it. Wow. All right, before we get into the questions, I want to make sure that we're at least decent for it, or kind of decent for it. So let me go ahead and take this drink, and then we'll continue with the questions that you guys have had for the Q&A. If you guys have any new questions that you guys want to ask me, something going on in your life, anything to do with friends, whatever it may be, drop it down in the questions for Q&A, and I'll answer them as we go through them. All right, 1, 2, 3. Cool. Well, question number 1, and I'm not sure if I should bring it up somehow. Here, I guess we can kind of do something like this, right? Yeah, what sort of shows can we expect you to react to in the future? Are you specifically looking for ones that are similar to ReZero in terms of scale, complexity, depth, or do you have something else in mind? Mr. Stabby, yeah, it's. I'm sure I've been noticing it gets tougher with age as well. In terms of shows, Andy, I pretty much open to anything, especially like Let's Plays as well. I've been trying to go ahead and start Event Zero, but because I've had a lot of stuff going on, it's been like up and down with it. I know I've been doing Halo. For those of you guys who do join us on Twitch, whenever we play, we just finished Halo 1. We're moving on to Halo 2. But it can be any anime, really, as long as it's not hentai, or like, you know, I'm not going to be able to show like a majority of the anime on YouTube. Like, it's okay, you know. So like you have to be able to pick something that's interesting, that actually has like some depth to it, something I'm actually able to like pick up on. Wales asked this previously, and I am bringing this up just because that is an important question, and it's, have you ever thought of doing something like Dr. K, where you do therapy thing on YouTube with the consenting viewer? No, like I plan on doing like interviews, but like never do therapy on stream, because that's I don't know how to put it. It's like, for example, if I had XQC or Ludwig or Stans or any of the big YouTubers on here, and I start going into their issues on them, are they really being themselves, or are they being the persona that they've created? And you have to break down all these different barriers that are already there, and it's also not fair for them. Like, even if it's an open space, right? The moment that they come in for, like, say, a talk, and you start going into like these conversations without like just being like, hey, are you okay, like previously with going into deep topics, like it's either going to be the persona that they've created is going to answer, or you know, you're going to hit a soft spot that they're not ready for. It also can create a lot of like codependency issues, where if they're having specific issues and you guys aren't really close, like they'll cling on to you to help solve them, instead of like, I don't know how to put it, like going to their therapist or something like that. Like being friends and asking questions, like for example, whenever we play Truth and Dare on Discord, you know, asking some of the deep questions, it's okay, right? Because you're in a safe space and all of that. But then having thousands and thousands or hundreds of people watching your streams, and you literally dissect a person down, one, it's kind of unprofessional because you're putting them on the spot, and two, are you really breaking through like the knowledge that they want you to know? Because in private it's completely different than in person, like, or you know, with like on stream per se, right? So it's a really, really difficult topic to go ahead and breach. Like I would love to do interviews, I would love to even like touch on soft topics, like tell me a little bit about what got you into streaming, you know, how do you deal with anxiety, stuff like that. Yeah, but then going into like, is that why your dad left you and stuff like that? No, you know, like there's limits. Lazy would love to see you react to shows like Eva, Violet Evergarden, and Mob Psycho. I've heard Violet Evergarden and Mob Psycho being brought up a lot. Violet Evergarden was on my radar for a good period of time. I don't know what happened. I I think I was gonna watch an episode, then I got really tired and fell asleep. I was gonna do it off stream, but I still haven't touched it, and I've heard of Mob Psycho a lot as well. Professor Sawyer, if there's one, it's fine. You can ask all you want. Is it possible to develop or increase empathy? By the way, feel free to ask questions in chat as well. You guys can drop questions like on here as well. That's fine. To develop and increase empathy, or is it something that developed early and remained almost permanent? No, empathy is something that doesn't. Empathy is not something that like you're exactly 100% developed with when you're born with. It's something that like you do have, like especially when you have like family, animals, dogs, cats, all of that. You know you do have some sort of empathy, but your empathy increases as your knowledge increases as well. So, for example, if you've been through a shitty situation and you have gotten out of it, and your friend's going through a shitty situation, now you have a way of empathizing through it. So it's like the more life situations or the more things. Yeah, or the more things that you go through, it's like the more that you have to be able to go ahead and like talk with someone and empathize with them and be there in that situation with them, or just draw from life experiences, you know? So it just depends on that. Like empathy is always something that keeps developing into your older years. I've heard Violet is a lot. I've heard Violet is quite a lot to go ahead and analyze. Is it possible to learn psychology without communication with people, just by the books? It is possible to learn psychology. There's different forms of psychology, not just counseling psychology. There's organizational psychology, there's research methods, there's 1,001 ways of psychology. There are people that have literally never seen a patient in their life, but they're called psychologists because all they do is like statistics. I'll leave that for you guys to dissect, whether or not you would call them more of an analyst than a psychologist, but I'm just throwing that out there because that's sort of like where the system is at the moment. How do you distinguish what you personally like, and what is imprinted on you by your parents or your environment? That's up to you. That's all personal. That's all quite literally like your own personal development. For example, I like Mexican food because I grew, or Latin American food, because I grew up in pretty much like a Latin American culture, you know. However, remove myself from that environment, you know, especially when I was in Europe or whatever, did my taste in food change? A little bit. Do I still love Latin American food when I was over there? Absolutely. I would search up and down for it, you know. So your things change, especially when you remove yourself from an environment, but yet because of your environment, because of your relationships, your attachments, everything that you've had when you've been growing up, it still places a strong impact on who you are. What advice from a psychological point you can give someone who wants to become a parent? Maybe there's something that they should do before becoming one. This is a question for all of you guys there. What do you guys think? Like, if you guys would give any advice for anyone that's trying to start a parent, like be a parent, what is the one thing that you would give to them? What advice would you say? Well, I take my water real quick. That was a good question, though. It's such a nuance. My big thing is, what I would say to them is, essentially, when you're trying to have a kid, or when you have a kid, one, you have to remember that like our goal is to always make our kids better than us, than where we are. Not necessarily like leave them in despair or anything like that, not like Subaru style, but I mean, like, you know, don't put the expectations that you would have on yourself, right? Because you've been growing to try and become better than what your parents were, or see where they're at and be a whole individual, if that makes sense, right? So take away, for example, like discipline styles and whatnot, and move more into a role of like, if I were in your shoes, how would I get from point A to point B? What advice would really help me? You know, move away from the mentality of like, oh, my child's acting up, I gotta discipline, I gotta spank them, I gotta do this or that, and move more into a role of like, okay, like, you know, for example, when I was in my old job, you know, dealing with autistic kids or kids on the spectrum, what I would do is I'd give them choices, and parents were like, why are you giving them choices? And it's because you're allowing an individual to have that freedom, just like us adults. Like, we make choices too, like every day when we get up, what we go and eat and stuff like that. Sometimes as kids, like, we force our kids to do what we want them to do, right? Instead of giving them choices. For example, kids, like, you know, you're like telling your kid, hey, like, let's get in the car, we're about to drive home. Give them the choice. Hey, do you want to go ahead and skip back to the car? You know, do you want to get in the car and I push you around like a race car? How do you want to get back into the car? Make it fun for them and give them those choices so that later on they're able to have that. I'd also say, be ready, start preparing yourself for having like those open conversations and developing an open household for later on when they, like, you know, they're in the dating phase and whatnot, because you would rather them be open and honest about what's happening than closed off and behind doors and hurting you in the long stead, because they're hurting themselves in the long stead, because that's what ends up happening when we close off communication. So communication is super duper important. Do you think it has merit to analyze fiction characters depicting them if you want to, or does it give the wrong view because if they inherit drama? So I think there's a lot of merit in understanding fictional characters and, you know, even like analyzing, for example, Subaru and whatnot, because you're able to pick apart certain things. Like when we watch media, any form of media, right, we connect with certain characters and we're able to pull information and relate to them based off of what we've experienced in our life. Even if you're not a Jedi, even if you're not like, you know, Captain Picard, you know, driving the USS Enterprise, you can still associate yourself with situations where you've been, you know, in a leadership role and stuff hasn't gone right and you've had to talk it out and find a way to like find a solution, right? Or sometimes where, you know, you did something and it didn't work quite right. So for example, with Otto, perfect depiction of this, and I think this is a really, really good observation just in general. If in a real world scenario, him having hypersensitivity to audio, right, sensations and whatnot, you could even say that Otto might, like, in nowadays, he might have been put on the spectrum, if we're being honest, right? And the more that you look at his interactions with Subaru, and the more that you like look at the way that he does certain interactions, people can relate to him in more ways than one. Not just the audio sensitivities, but the way that like he clings on to people, or the way that he does certain scenarios, his attachment styles, so on and so forth. So one comment that I got that actually like made me cry in like a good way was when I first started the series. Someone actually reached out to me and mentioned like, hey, I didn't know a lot about attachment styles or a lot about like what it meant to like, you know, what anxious attachment looked like, right? And so I started talking about like Emilia and Subaru, and for them that clicked. They're like, wait, okay, so then because of something that happened in their past, I can now see why I'm relating so much to these characters. And they went into therapy and they've been getting better. So that's sort of what I'm like referencing to, you know? It's like you have all these different options and all these different characters that you can relate to. And like, if you pick up one thing, you know, if you're able to go ahead and analyze one character and be like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, I can kind of see that on myself, or I can kind of see that. Maybe like, you know, see this one aspect of this character. Maybe I can try and fix that, you know? And it's such a big, complicated, I don't know, forum. Like, it's just cool. It's such a cool thing to go ahead and analyze. Sorry if that's like a little too deep. But anyway, next question. You mentioned I completely understand you, and is a sentence from a therapist is a red flag. Can you mention some others? Okay, the reason why I say that is because just like, okay, right? Like if you're ever with a friend or whatever, and like they're dismissing you, right? I completely understand you is such a dismissive sentence. So, for example, if Midnight was going through some struggles, right? And they were like, hey, you know what? Like this and this happened. I'm like, oh yeah, I completely understand you. She's gonna be like, no, you don't. They're gonna be like, what are you doing? Like, you've never been through what I've been through. You're not in my shoes, you know. You've not been in my shoes. You can't truly understand me 100%. And that's right. That is 100% correct. However, if I switched it to like, you know what, I can't possibly understand what you're going through, but like, let me talk, like, why don't you tell me more about it? Or like, I can draw from some of my past stuff and relate to you. That's way different than I completely understand you. Because I completely understand you is, yeah, it's a rough sentence. So anything like that, anything that's dismissive, that doesn't really adhere to your issues. And I will say this, a lot of therapists, and I'm throwing this out there, a lot of therapists will like, they'll be like, we're going to do CBT from now to like the end of our sessions. Don't. put up a wall, right? If you go into one session, some people CBT works wonders for them. If you do not enjoy CBT and you're in there and they're like, you're like, all right, I wish I could do something else, ask for it. Be like, hey, I appreciate what you're doing, but I don't think that this is the right approach for me. Be honest with your therapist. There's other therapists out there that are willing to help you. And trust me when they say like, oh no, we don't have any other therapists on hand. Yes, they do. You just got to go ahead and ask, especially if it's a community health setting. Okay. In the process of finding therapists, is there a risk to finding a bad therapist and being more traumatized and or delay your healing? Yes, there is. There's a lot of people that, and I hate to put this out there, there's a lot of people that only stick to one style like of therapy. So for example, because of where I went and studied, I learned multiple styles of therapy, multiple techniques. Brady will tell you the same thing. If you're like, hey, can you do narrative therapy? Sure. Hey, can you do play therapy? Sure. Can you do CBT? Sure. Can you do like existential? Sure. Can you do psychodrama? Sure. Whatever you want. Like, I'm there to like go ahead and help and guide you. But there are a lot of people, especially here in the United States, that I've noticed that only stick to one particular type. And you're like, why? There's more than one, so there is a risk of finding a bad therapist, but it's also like, for example, I'll put this out there. If in your first session, first 1 or 2 sessions, they don't go over the rules, like they don't go over like, hey, you know what, this is a safe space. Let's talk about boundaries. What are you not comfortable with? Let's talk about like, what this looks like for you. What are you comfortable not talking about? What are you comfortable breaching? So on and so forth. Like, talking about boundaries is so important. And if a therapist just keeps overriding them, that's a bad therapist. So just be comfortable with that. Be ready for that. I identified with auto because I see myself. I have extreme audio sensitivity and share some. And that's the thing. It's like, for me, to be honest with you, Otto is one of my favorite characters because of how realistic his settings were. A lot of the characters in ReZero are pretty realistic. And even if people are like, no, they're not, I can argue with them for days about what realism looks in a mental health setting. So yeah, they're pretty realistic characters and pretty wholesome. Otto is a pretty wholesome character. Self-therapy, is it even possible? Yes. If you talk to yourself on the daily, for example, I have conversations with myself. I'm going to the store. I'm like, oh, what did I forget to get? Oh yeah, I should have gotten this. Oh, that looks pretty good. So on and so forth. Having that internal voice, and sleeping, even though it's weird, but sleeping is one of the most natural self-help, self-healing remedies that like we have as humans. So that can really, really help you out. But yes, self-therapy, although like me as a therapist trying to therapize myself, not really going to work. You always need someone else to like break down the issues that you don't want to break down. So important to note that, important to throw that out. Like self-therapy in terms of, or like self-healing in terms of self-talk, possible. Dreaming or going to sleep, sleeping well, eating well, possible. But like diving into the big issues, we always put up walls. So it's always important to have someone else looking at. Did you see in your career someone who goes to psychology just to manipulate people? Yes, there are some people, and this is why I'm throwing this out there, and I got to be 100% honest with you guys. Just be careful with who you interact with that are like mental health professionals. Not really mental health professionals, but just in general, anyone that's like quick to take advantage. And I'll share a personal experience. I met this guy that was a part of, like, that worked with the, I guess it was like NATO or the UN. I'm not going to go into either or, but he was pretty high ranking in there. He was a part of like, psychology stuff. He was also trying to learn into the mental health field and stuff like that. But he was an extreme narcissist. And an extreme narcissist is really good at manipulating people. I would almost classify him as a sociopath, where, for example, he was, there was a lot of cheating going on. There was a lot of A and B, like C. I'm not going to go into the specifics that were happening in that case, but they picked up a lot of techniques that like you would go over, and then like the next session you'd have with them, you'd be like, all right, so did you do the techniques? And they'd be like, yeah, I used them on this person. It's like, no, those techniques are for you. They're not for you to be using on someone else, and then they'll try and swindle their way out of the scenario. So just be careful, because there are a lot of people out there that uninherently or unknowingly, for example, they use knowledge that you give them against you, or they'll try and do certain manipulative tactics like that. So just be very aware of your friend group and stuff like that, and be very aware of your boundaries, what that means for you. Luckily, a lot of therapists are able to catch them and take the corrective actions with them. Sometimes that even means ending the whole therapy sessions right there and then. But yeah, just be careful, especially around your friend group. If you can recommend one psychology book, what would you choose? Honestly, that's hard. Because a lot of psychology books, I'll be honest with you, they're boring. Like, they're not really made to be ease of access. And I wish that would change. Majority of these books are starting with chapter 1, we're going to go over what group therapy is. Group therapy by Irvin, blah, 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 blah. Right? It's super long and boring. But what I would suggest is any form of self-help book. Talking about communication, right? Any form of attachment, just fun attachment groups and what they mean, right? So it's just a really good way to get an intro into what psychology is. You said you got tricked into watching Boku no Pico. By who? My brother. If this is someone who you know personally, it didn't really affect my relationship with them. It was just awkward because I was watching it on my computer because he's like, yeah, it's a really good anime. You should try and psychoanalyze it. And boom, at the scene, and I'm sure you guys know which one scene I'm talking about, my parents walked in. Awkward conversation to have about how your brother recommended an anime for you to try and psychoanalyze. And yeah. I hope that great. Yeah. As a YouTuber or streamer, what do you think about modern YouTube streaming culture? I think it's been very sensitized, if I'm being honest with you. I think it's gotten to a point where streaming has now become YouTube has no longer become about self-expression or being yourself or being honest or whatever, but literally meeting time zones or meeting specific time requirements, going along with cultural trends, and your self-expression is only limited into those regards. Whereas before, for example, you'd had Filthy Frank that would go up and down and say A through Z, make fun of everyone and anything in between, and that would be okay. People would laugh at it. Of course, there'd be drama, there'd be whatever, right? But the older days of YouTube, you have a lot more liberty into doing whatever that expression means. Granted, there's limitations into what should and shouldn't be allowed. I'm not going to get into that. But what I will say is nowadays, for example, say that my videos, right? My videos can range anywhere from 15 minutes all the way to an hour, 2 hours, usually, right? A lot of YouTubers don't do that. And a lot of YouTubers stick to the 10 minutes and under because they're not getting paid, because the retention rate, because it's not meeting the cultural trends, because people don't like it, because A, B, and C, and D. And all of a sudden, once you start getting into that mentality, your uniqueness can only shine for that set amount of time. Personally, I love putting my stuff out there. Sometimes it's a little discouraging when there's a lot of bad comments or people that don't really like whatever you're putting out. And it's all right, cool, whatever. But you still gotta keep doing it every day, and you'll build a cool following or a cool number of people that talk to you whenever possible. So it's it's up to that, and I see that as a big problem going forward because the retention rate is slowly going to start going down, and then streamer inclusivity, for example, you have some streamers that only yell, rage, make funny faces the entire time, and that's what they're known for. You have other streamers who, I'm gonna go with Twitch, right, who can do subathons for days and days and days, but yet a majority of their content is small and repetitive, right? That what do you take away from that stream other than okay, I laughed a few times or whatever? So it's just about that weird consciousness, that weird line in between. So yeah, that's essentially my thoughts on streaming and sort of where it's at. And thank you guys for you guys that watch. It really helps a lot. What do you think about the impact of the internet as a whole on mental health? Is it mixed bag? I think where there's a lot of trolls, there's also I don't know how to put it, a lot more expressiveness and a lot more finding yourself in this new version of the internet. A lot of people, especially after the major wars and all of that, would repress their feelings and take it out on their family, their kids, their loved ones. Because of the internet, you also have a lot of new ways to reach out into not just therapy, but finding groups that are similar to you, finding LARPers, cosplay, ReZero groups, even like us. So there's a lot of different ways out there that like you can touch on good and bad aspect, because there's trolling, there's bullying, there's so on and so forth. So I think it's somewhere in the middle, you know. But anyway, those are all the questions I had. Unless any of you guys on Twitch have any new questions, let me know. Let me know down below. What is the next series you're going to react to? We'll talk about that in a second. Do you think interacting with people in the community has changed your outlook on life? And it's made me a lot more optimistic as to, like, I'll be honest, when I first started the whole series of like ReZero and whatnot, I didn't think people would be into it at all. I was just doing it for myself. I was just throwing it out there. And granted, at first, there's a lot of mean comments. There's some people that were like, oh, he's lying and whatnot. And even though I was doing it like episode by episode, or even like Twitch streaming and stuff, there was a lot of that. But yeah. Oh no, Professor, like, it wasn't a bother. It was actually really good questions. I liked them a lot. So good job, A+. But yeah, that's probably the best way I can put it, is like, I feel like interacting with people in this community has changed my outlook and made it a lot more possible to know that there's like people that are interested in mental health and anime, and, you know, sort of psychoanalyzing characters and going deep into them and whatever that means, you know. And so it's quite nice. My predictions were too good. Honestly, Shakad, sometimes I'd scare myself, right? Because I would say something and then like an episode later it would pop up, and like when I said it, right, I just said it with like whatever I like gathered right there and then. I didn't like actually mean like, oh, you know what, this is gonna absolutely 1000% happen. It was like, oh, okay, this can happen because of A, B, and C. And all of a sudden it's like it happens, and I'm like, oh shit, like Pandora killed me, because I didn't expect Pandora to actually happen. I thought it was a joke. I was talking about like the Greek story, not actually Pandora. So no wonder you guys were all like laughing every time I'd mention it, or some people would be like, oh, he's onto something. Like, yeah. To be fair, that did scare me. Your rabbit scared me too, so. But anyway, in terms of anime, I guess this is the point, YouTube, and this is the point for Twitch as well. Drop it in. Once again, all the animes you guys want me to react to, put it on here. Get influence. Find someone's like something that you guys want me to go ahead and do. This is gonna be a video that's gonna go on YouTube as well. So YouTube gets to go ahead and put up all the comments, and the most liked versions of all the like things most likely get like 2 or 3 episodes. So go ahead, put it in. Make it go quick. Because yeah, like, and as I said, like, I'll watch 2 or 3 episodes. If I don't like it, I'll go ahead and, you know, move on to another one. I'll make an episode about it. But the more that you guys put up here, the better it's gonna be. Are you talking about Comey can't communicate, USB? Have a good night, USB. But yeah. But yeah, feel free to put it on all the animes you guys want me to watch. I'm only gonna take this list and the ones that are in the video. Ghost in the Shell, Monster. I can't even pronounce the other one. Kaiba. Keep going, guys. There you go. But yeah, for those of you on YouTube, feel free, post it in the comments. The one with the most likes, along with the ones that I find the most unique. I'll go ahead and do a couple episodes of, throw them up. If I really like them, I'll continue them. If not, we'll stop there. Mom Cycle 100. Madoka Magica. There we go. So what I'll end up doing, and this is for those of you here on Twitch, as they keep putting on, today's stream is going to end with that. But on Sunday, I should be free, and we're going to do an episode of Attack on Titan live, an episode of Death Parade live, and Vivi if we have an opportunity. How does that sound? Does that sound like a plan? Right, episode 2 is Pog. Well, I'm excited. I am excited for Death Parade. Thank you guys. Prepare for suffering. Oh, you guys are scaring me now. Sort of where we're heading. But yeah. Anyway, I appreciate you guys so much for coming out. Oh, so much yet to say. Yet to say. Thank you so much for following. You joined at the end of the stream, boy. Feel free to drop an anime that you want me to watch. Quick, do it. Don't be afraid. But yeah, my health is. Yeah, I'm also taking my health really important. Don't be afraid. But yeah, my health is. Yeah, I'm also taking my health really important. I'm. Made in Abyss. Ooh, interesting. But that's what I said. So Sunday we'll go ahead and do it around the same time, around 7 p.m. Arizona time. And we'll try and get through them. We'll actually start a little bit earlier. If I start a little bit earlier, I'll put it in the announcement page on Discord. Follow us on Discord. Crave, throw it up. Oh, that's exactly what we're talking about. So much just to say. On Sunday, we're going to do 4 anime. We're going to do Attack on Titan, Vivi episode 2. What was the other one? Death Parade episode 2, and then Violet Evergarden. And then you guys on YouTube will actually get to decide what the next official, like, full-on YouTube series is going to be. So, cool. Anyway, I appreciate you guys so much. Have a great night. Practice some self-care as always. You guys know I love you and I appreciate you. Join the Discord. That way we can have full-on conversations whenever that happens. And as I said, it'll be Sunday around 7 p.m. Arizona time. If it's earlier, I'll let you guys know. But I appreciate you guys. Have a good night. Bye-bye. Bye. Be safe. Bye.